When I signed up to go back to university to do my master's, I didn't have any particular goal in mind. Through the first year, we had to come up with a development. Avondale was the site, and we had to pick a place where we would develop something that would be beneficial to the community. I did have a kaupapa Māori focus on that. There's so many aspects about the traditional way of living that would be beneficial to people now. I knew that there was something in that traditional idea that we're connected to earth and nature. I'm doing my thesis on reconnection to whenua and the positive impacts of that for Māori people, or specifically for this tribe. But there's so many things, like not having a toilet off your kitchen, and even with my design that I did for my apartments, there were 4 levels of apartments. This was for my project in the first year. I found out that you can't even have the plumbing from a bathroom going down the same wall as plumbing from a kitchen. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. It makes sense to me. I think people are so simplistic in their mindset of what kaupapa Māori architecture is. But when you think about it, at the same time that Māori were living in watertight, warm, dry, and sanitary spaces, in England, they had sewage running down the streets and lived in crowded slums. It's not about the building itself, it's about the life that people live while they're in it. I grew up in Auckland, Tamaki Makaurau, and I knew that I had Māori ancestry. I always knew of that, but we never had any real connection. Like on occasion, I remember going down to Te Kuiti for a family birthday party, but I didn't really have real connections where I was learning. My dad spoke te reo, but he never spoke it, to us all the time, so we didn't learn. When I did speak to him about it, or when I did ask him about our ancestry, he would tell me, oh, it's not really worth talking about. And I realize now, I hate this, that's just the impact of colonization. It always upsets me because I realize that what my grandparents and my father went through were probably really traumatic. Everyone on his side of the family really presented as Pākehā, right back, like even my great-grandfather who was half Māori. And so I guess they ran with that, and it's not because they weren't proud of who they were traumatized by what they had to deal with. And so that's only really been a realization since I've gotten older. But I didn't want to let that stop me. And I became a member of Tainui when I was probably about 25-ish, maybe around the time that Dad died. I really didn't know anything. I didn't have much to go on, and Dad was gone, and there were no family members that I was connected to. Somewhere on Facebook, some connection happened between Tui Waikingi and myself. We realized that we're from the same family line. Yeah, so she was the one that really connected me from a distance. Living in the South Island, I always kept in touch with her, and it was only when I moved back up here. I moved back in 2020. During that time, I was just working in architecture. There's so many stories out there of people feeling connected but disconnected. They know that they're Māori, but then they don't know how to be Māori because your parents did away with it in a way. And I just wish that I could talk to Dad now and set him right, like with my masters. I want to be able to use the skills and knowledge that I have to help our tribe to be able to work towards the best future that we can have, even if it is just a 9-10 acre plot of land. That's still something that we can work with. And that's my motivation, because I see how downtrodden they were, and it's like we're not going to let them win. We'll come back. I spoke with George, and he said his nephew's a landscape designer, and I'm like, this is going to be a tribal project. This could be like a really awesome time for everyone who's got all these skills to come together. Marita had suggested I put forward to help with feasibility, which would be awesome. I mean, it's pretty much what I'm doing now, but I'll have to work towards their plan rather than my interpretation. I've been to a couple of gatherings at the university where it's all engineers, architects, designers, you know, all these really skilled people, and they're all Māori. You have to distinguish yourself. Otherwise, they're not going to notice. I want to get a korowai for my kids, because then when they walk across the stage, people will see. I think it was about October 2023. My whāngai brother, George, said to me, "Do you want to go and hike Mount Parongia?" I was like, "Of course, let's do it." You know, that's my mountain. We walked up, and I'd never heard of the Patupaerehe, right? The ferries on the mountain. So that was like amazing. There was information about how the Patupaerehe and Māori had children, and they had blonde hair and blue eyes or something. I might be wrong, but that was my interpretation of it. And the walk up Mount Parongia was amazing, but it was probably the hardest hike I've ever done. It made me appreciate how incredible my ancestors were, that they would hike over that no problem. They wouldn't be complaining, but here I was. It was really cool. And then after that, we went to the marae at Purikirihi and met up with Tuhi Waikingi. She told us about the massacre in Rangiaowhia. I'd never heard of it before. I knew that land had been confiscated, and I had little tidbits of information growing up. So hearing that, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it, because it was just so wrong. And it's unbelievable what went down, and that it just completely got, you know, lost in history, and people didn't even know about it. Yeah, but it was Tui Waikingi that put me on the path of, this is where you whakapapa to your marae. It was Tui Wai that really gave me the information about, you know, my tūranga waiwai, my place to stand, because I didn't know before her. So that's been really amazing. And looking into my genetic history after doing an ancestry DNA test, confirmed some things that I already knew, and then added more information on to what I had. So I have my great-great-grandmother, I think, her name was Mary Tupara. She was born at Rangiaowhia. And then I have a couple of great-great-grandmothers who were born in Kawhia. So there is a connection. I'm still finding those places. I know for sure Ngāti Apakura, but I think there may be other connections as well. There was one story that I read about after the massacre at Rangiaowhia, and then some of them went down to Taupo. And there was this old man, and they had stopped on a mountain as they were leaving the area, and he looked out over his homelands, and then he died. I don't know if I'm just overly emotional about things, but imagine everything that you've known. People have died, your land's taken, and you have to go somewhere new, even though they probably felt welcome where they were going. It's just such an incredibly difficult position to be in. I don't think many people really comprehend how hard it would have been, you know, that no longer were they at home. They didn't have their land anymore. They had to find a place to go. I can't fix every disconnection that has happened, you know, but I can start the process. And I just really hope that my kids find that reconnection, and that their kids, you know, can see where they came from. And that's better than letting colonization win. Yeah. For me, it's not just about an academic endeavor, you know, it's about me being able to find that connection that was lost. And it's not too late. I'm learning so much. Just the people that I talk to, I learned so much from. One lady, Joanne Tainer, she wanted to see the ability for mothers to birth on the land again, or to bury their whenua and things like that. So I went and met with her and talked with her more of that. And even just talking with her about my own sort of desires in life in terms of childbirth, or just that connection to nature. She said to me about how that's just in your DNA, like it's built into you, and that's why you feel that way. Because I wasn't brought up like that. For Joanne Tainer to say that to me, that it's just part of my DNA, like, that makes me feel good, you know, that I've still got it in me.